Hello friends, welcome to the Wardenberg Family Farm. This is week 3 of the Pantry Challenge.
But we're also doing some other things today. We're doing some canning and we're doing some seed starting. Ruby's interested in what I'm doing. We're in the middle of the 3rd week of the food challenge, the Pantry Challenge. And it is a very, very cold day here in South Central Pennsylvania. The next couple days are going to be really cold, like 0. So I'm just about out of beef broth. Had these bones in the freezer. I think it's time to make some beef bone broth. So the very first thing I have to do is put them in the oven at 425 for an hour. Then I'll bring you back and tell you about an experiment I'm going to try. Bones are out of the oven. They roasted for 425 for an hour and nicely golden brown. It smells like beef in here. So now I put them in the roaster and I'm just going to put in some chunked up onions and crushed garlic. And you put skins and all. It all has flavor in it. And I don't salt my broth a lot, but I'm going to put just a little bit in, just like a teaspoon or 2. For the whole thing of broth. You can always add salt after the fact, you can't take it away. And like almost a teaspoon of pepper, how about that? And then you actually put vinegar when you're doing broth. I think it helps get the marrow out of the bones or something, or helps the bones soften. And then it's just a matter of filling up with water. And I will put this on like 350 for the day. And then when I go to bed tonight, I'll turn it down to 250. And I'm probably going to roast this for 48 hours. 350 during the day, 250 at night. So in 2 days, we'll come back and take a look at it, and I'll can the first batch up. Okay, it's been 48 hours. Time to get the first batch of broth canned up. And yes, that's the experiment I'm doing. I'm going to do 2 batches with the same bones. So first I get these out and let everything drain off of them, and then start straining out the broth. Okay, I took the bones out, drained all the goodness off of them, and put all the rest of the broth through just a strainer to get the big bits and pieces out. Now I'm working on getting the fat out. And I don't want to take all of it, but I'll get most of it. And I was just doing it by putting the ladle in and letting the fat come off the top. But I'm going to try my fat separator. It seems to be working where the fat all rises to the top. And if you can't see it, there's a fat layer on the top. And you actually push a button, it comes out the bottom. So the broth comes out the bottom, and you just have to make sure you stop pushing before the fat gets down there. Now I want to tell you more about the experiment. I've made broth before, beef broth, and I always thought it was a waste just to use the bones and throw them out. And I watched Carter on Grow and Preserve. She is a great woman. She cans, gardens, does it all. But she actually made 4 batches out of her bones. Now, I don't know if I'll get that many, but she made the first one, which is really dark, beefy, really strong in flavor. The second one was lighter. And it was more like for soups and things you didn't want as much of a beefy taste for. Now, she actually got a 3rd batch, and then she did a 4th round for something to pour over her dog's food. I love Ruby. I don't think I'm going to do any more batches to put over her food. But I'm going to get at least 2 batches out of the same bones and see how it goes. So I'll get the first batch canned up. I already put the bones back in. I'll fill it back up with water. Let it go another 48 hours. So it's going to smell like beef in here for another 2 days at least. But I'll let you know how many jars I got out of the first batch. And I'll show you how dark it is, how it looks.
So how many quarts do you think you're going to get?
I don't know. These are pints. I want to do the really strong, beefy stuff in pints. Because I don't know if I'll use a whole quart, depending on what recipe I'm making.
So just for reference, though, How much water did you pour
I
in?
started off with 11 quarts of water,
11 quarts of water?
but I know a lot of it cooked off. So this is pretty intense flavor.
Okay. You know, not being a cook or a chef myself, I didn't really know the difference between beef broth and beef stock. And I think I've been using the wrong terminology. This is actually beef stock, isn't it?
Technically, because you use the bones, but most people use them interchangeably. So it's like stock is probably more protein, more flavorful, but
so I was wrong, but probably not noticeably.
yeah, no, everybody pretty much calls it broth, beef broth. And
So the stock has more protein in it.
well, if you use the
because of
bones, it'll have the collagen and stuff from the bones.
Okay.
So yeah, it would have more protein. And this actually should congeal. If it's in the fridge, it should actually gel up because it should have quite a bit of collagen in it. Not sure how much I'll end up with. I'll let you know. I'm going to be really careful wiping off the rims of these jars on me with all the fat and stuff. Good chance they might not seal if there's any grease left on the rim of the jar. So I will be wiping these meticulously with white vinegar. Although I was thinking, if one of them doesn't seal, I would put it in with batch 2. Because I'm not done canning yet, and I'll be canning for a while. So depending how many batches I get, I know I'm going to get 2. I'll have to see about the third. I'll see how strong the second one looks. I don't know.
I think Ruby wants a batch.
Yeah, she wants some for on top of her dog food.
You know, the problem after that is she gets spoiled.
She won't want to eat the dog food plain.
Yeah.
We don't want to spoil Ruby.
Well, she's already weird about the water. She wants fresh water.
She's a diva. She will go out on walks and eat.
Drink puddles.
Drink out of puddles and eat pretty much anything she runs across that stinks. But she comes in and she wants me to put fresh water in her bowl. She'll tap it until I actually put fresh water in. Diva Ruby.
All right, we're continuing on with the pantry challenge, and we've got plenty of beef. Our Angus beef is down in a freezer, so we thought it would be time to get some out. Now what we're going to have now are short ribs. You know, the funny thing is before we had our own beef, we never did short ribs. There were a lot of cuts that we never had. Before you butcher your own, you got to learn how to use you know, tri-tip, brisket. We never cooked brisket before either. So.
But now you make amazing briskets.
Yeah, so that's one of the fun things about buying a beef quarter or processing your own beef. So we have short ribs here. There's 4 of them, and we're going to start off by braising. And this is a cast iron Dutch oven. Got a little bit of olive oil on the bottom. We're going to braise them so they look nice before we go to the next step. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop these in. Doesn't that sound great? All right, so we've reduced the wine and the bone broth, and now we're just going to go ahead and put our beautiful ribs inside, the short ribs, and get ready to put them in the oven. And they go into an oven at 325 for what, about 3 hours. You want to make sure though that all the meat just falls right off the bone. You will know.
Well, it's late January, so it's time to start some seeds. Now, the very first thing I have to do is mix up my seed starting mix. And I'm trying a couple different things this year. I always like trying something different. I am still using the coconut coir blocks. It's the burpee one. I just really like them. They add a lot of bulk and they help the soil drain. And I know there's some controversy. Some people have said they can contain sodium. But Burpee said they do an extensive rinsing process, so there should be no sodium in them. So I feel fine with Burpee coconut coir blocks. And I usually reconstitute them with warm water. They go faster. So I'm just going to put some warm water in here and get that started reconstituting. Each soil blocks, I like them really moist. Each soil blocks actually makes 8 quarts of mix. And see, it just starts puffing up. Like they blow up.
It's moving. It's alive.
It is alive. And while that's happening, I also like to get my soil mix. I just use regular old Pro Mix potting mix as a base. And it takes forever for water to absorb into that, so I'm going to go ahead and start wetting it down. I like working with really wet soil for my seed starting.
Are you doing blocks?
Not this time, but I think I might give them another chance this year. I'm considering it. I don't know, they were frustrating to me the first time I tried them. I couldn't get the mix right and actually get them to stay as blocks, but I might give them another shot. They do have a lot of good things about them, but I don't know if they're worth the aggravation, or I just never really got it down. See, it's still pretty dry. When you do soil blocks, you do want it really wet, but I go for all of it. And once this coconut coir is completely reconstituted, I'm going to mix potting soil with the coconut coir, put in a wee little bit of worm castings, put in some vermiculite, and then some trifecta fertilizer. That's M.I. Gardner's fertilizer. It really is one of the best fertilizers out there. I'm not going to be real strict in my measurements. I don't measure when I cook. I don't measure when I mix soil. But I'll get that all mixed up and then start some seeds. All right, so the soil's nice and mixed, and somebody helped me. A very nice cameraman helped me. And now I'm just going to fill these containers up to start these seeds in. Some other things I will be starting them in smaller containers, but for this works just as well.
I noticed you put all your new tags on your beef.
Yes, I did. We have cute little labels for our honey now. Has more information on them, and they're just cute.
Yeah.
If you've ever planted snapdragon seeds, you know that they are tiny, teeny little things. So I got what I think is about 20 to 30 seeds in this little packet, and I'm going to shake it into one of my things, hopefully getting them spread out a little bit. So those are rose colored. I have all different colors I want to plant here today. So I'm planting lemon, white, red, flamingo, which I think is pink, orange, and apricot. And I think I'm going to plant one thing of just a mix, an assortment. So let me get the rest of these planted up and I'll bring you back for onions. All right, got 9 different types of snapdragons planted. Now I'm going to do 4 types of onions. And I'm going to use my handy seed dispenser that a viewer sent me. And it's nice because you just tap it and they come out a couple at a time. I want these pretty thick actually. So there. Okay, I have red, and then I have a candy onion, a yellow sweet Spanish, and a yellow of Parma. And this is the first planting of onions. These will be ready a little bit earlier. In about a month or two, I'm going to do another second seeding. So I have some onions coming finished right at the very end of the season so I can cure them and keep them down in the larder. So this is kind of like the early ones. We'll probably use these up mostly and maybe sell some. All right. I got all the seeds started, and for onions and chives, I actually put a little bit of soil over the top. For everything else, I just put vermiculite. The snapdragons, and I did some celery. They all need a little bit of light to germinate, so the vermiculite helps keep the moisture in, the light still gets through, and things seem to germinate really well. So I just sprinkle a light coating of vermiculite over the top. And then wait for these guys to germinate. Thus the gardening season begins.
Now, will you put water on top so it goes through the vermiculite, or are they watered from the bottom?
Well, until they germinate, I have a little sprayer, and I will actually spray the tops lightly enough that I don't throw seeds everywhere. And then once they germinate, then I water from the bottom and let the pots wick it up through. So, but for the beginning, I will just spray it with my sprayer every morning to keep the tops moist. And remember, I use pretty wet soil, so the soil has a lot of moisture in it. That helps germination too. So, that was just how long it takes these to germinate. And these are all things that can take a long time to get ready to go to the garden.
So what temperature should this room be?
Well, it's about 70 in here.
Yeah.
But I usually have the lights above them, and there's the lights below them. And even though these are LEDs, they do give off a little bit of heat. So they're not on a heat mat or anything, but they do get a little bit of heat from the bottom. So
Okay.
probably slightly more than 70. But it seems to work. They germinate. So now I'll just put them on the shelf, water them every morning, and wait to see the little green things poking through.
Smells great. Here we go. Oh my. You ought to take a look at these. Yeah. The meat's falling right off the bone.
That means it's done.
Look how dark, beautiful. In fact, the bones came right out.
Perfect. Okay, the canner is going with the second batch of broth. There's 7 quarts in there, and I had 1 quart that didn't fit in the canner. So what I'm going to do, I'm going for a third batch. I'm going to put the quart that didn't fit in from the second batch, and I put all the fat and bits and pieces back in with the bones, and I'm going for the third batch. At the very least, I might be able to use it for cooking noodles or rice or something, just to give it a little bit of flavor, but we'll see how the third one turns out. The second one's pretty nice. Okay, the whole family was supposed to come over last week for my birthday for a lunch, and we got snowed out. So they're coming over tomorrow. And I'm in the mood for a cake, and since it's kind of my birthday lunch, I'll make whatever I want. And I want a chocolate cake with peanut butter icing. It starts with sugar, and then cocoa. Plenty of cocoa to make it nice and chocolatey. 2 eggs. Half a cup of oil. 1 cup of milk, and we are just about out of milk. And then 1 cup of black coffee. And I think that's what makes it really good.
Let's see what this looks like.
And then 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So you mix this up, and then you add in the flour, baking soda, baking powder, and salt. And it is a very runny cake batter. It looks like it can't be right, but it is. Okay, so that's mixed up. 2 cups of flour. 1 teaspoon baking soda. 1 teaspoon baking powder. And a half teaspoon of salt. I haven't had this cake in a long time, so it just sounds really good. Now look at this. This is very runny for a cake batter. Okay? But it's right. That is how it's supposed to be. So I already have a cake pan greased. Just put a little olive oil on it. I'll put this in the pan and bake it for 375 for 30 to 40 minutes. And we're going to have a scrumptious chocolate cake. Well, we have another week down for the pantry challenge. That's 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, now we did cheat yesterday. We had the whole family over for my birthday lunch that was a week late,
Yeah.
and they all love subs. So we did go out and buy subs for lunch.
Yep.
So,
Well, after church, we didn't have time to make any really big things.
well, if I really pushed it, I could. If it was my birthday dinner, I didn't want to make subs.
All right.
But
well,
I did
that's
make the
good.
cake, and everybody loved the cake.
Yes.
So that was a hit.
Tremendous.
So, and I did finish the beef broth just this morning.
So this is week.
Batch 1, batch 2, batch 3. Do you see a difference?
Well, it's not quite fair because this is a smaller jar. So, but to me, this is a little heavier.
Well,
I
it's
can't
probably-
see through
yeah,
it
yeah.
as much.
But I mean, they all smelled amazing as they were cooking. The third one still smelled amazing.
But you expected the first one to be.
I expected it to be a lot darker.
Okay.
Now, my broth, they're all kind of cloudy. Can anybody tell me why my broth got cloudy? Last year it didn't, and I did the same thing. So I'm not sure about that, but it's got a little bit of cloud to it. But it smelled amazing, so.
So the smell is awesome. They look great. We didn't taste test each one of the 3.
No.
We'll have to do that sometime.
I think they're all going to be amazing, though.
Yeah. So I'm really surprised that all 3 of
I
them
am too.
look terrific.
Yeah.
And look how much work that saved you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the roaster did all the work, just roasting away
Yeah,
for 2
but you
days
didn't
on
have to
each
go
batch.
get new bones and
No, no.
you know.
But after smelling beef broth for 6 days, I'm ready to
Yeah.
not smell beef broth for
The
a
other
little
thing
bit.
I'm interested in tasting is that it's only the first one that had all the veggies in
Yeah,
it.
yep.
So the other 2 didn't.
But a lot of them I do end up using in soups and stews and stuff. So
Yeah.
they're kind of like the background flavor, whereas this, the first batch, I would probably use for like beef burgundy, beef
Mm-hmm.
stroganoff, any real beefy dish.
Speaking of beef, we had great meals this week.
Yes, we did.
Those beef short ribs
They
were
were delicious.
amazing.
They were delicious.
Yeah, that sauce, the reduction sauce with the, I think
The
we
red
had
wine.
Cabernet and had some good wine and other.
And beef broth.
That was my favorite, I think, of the whole 3-week experiment.
I guess it was
Yeah.
really good. It was.
Yeah.
Well, and then we just had some soup with grilled cheese.
Yeah.
And some shrimp from
Now,
the
your
freezer.
grilled
pesto
cheese
pasta.
was awesome because I loved your fresh bread that you made.
But I didn't make sourdough this week. My sourdough starter didn't look all that healthy, so I just made regular yeast bread. But next week, I've been feeding my sourdough extra. It looks pretty healthy now. So next week, I am going to make sourdough bread. And I also hope to make sourdough buttermilk biscuits. So,
Well, that ties in. I have a special challenge for you next week that we'll have to tie in. You have to wait and see what it is.
can't wait for that one.
Yeah. So 3 weeks down,
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah, we're doing, I mean, it's not that hard because we have so much food here, but,
Yeah.
but it's really kind of neat to think about and really plan it that way. So, well, thanks for coming along on our journey and seeing us do this challenge and doing all kinds of other things too. We'll see you in our next video and see what his challenge is for me. Bye-bye.